Hi everyone, I'm Hector Garcia. I'm a CPA and I'm a big fan of QuickBooks Online, and I'm well known here in YouTube for all my QuickBooks Online tutorials. However, I get many emails and comments and DMs of people saying, hey, is there a video that just simply walks me through just the setup process, how to get up and running quickly and easily so I don't get confused? So could you make a video about that? And the answer is yes, this is the video about that. Now, before we get deep into the content here, and I realize this video is almost an hour long, and some of you will watch the whole thing, some of you will just watch a part, make sure you check out the description section where I'm going to have my email address, links to other videos or other resources that I may make reference to through the video, and most importantly, the timeline. You can jump straight to any timestamp, and it will take you fast forward or rewind to any specific section of this video that you want to get into. Keep in mind that after you're done with this video, this is not going to be you knowing QuickBooks 100%. This is how to get started. So any additional content that I create, part 2, part 3, part 4, a natural continuation to this video is going to be right there in the description section. Now, if you're if you're going to get started with QuickBooks for the first time, you're probably just going to go into Google and then search in Google the word QuickBooks, because most people don't actually go to QuickBooks.com. They just search QuickBooks in Google, and then they'll probably click on the very first sponsor link, very first advertising link, and it will send you straight into the QuickBooks landing page, and you will be able to set up an account straight from there. Now, if you have not set up an account yet, I'm just going to recommend you that you can go that route. But if you're in the US, I recommend you use my link. I'll put it in the description below, because my link will give you both a 30-day trial, and it will also give you 30% discount for 12 months. So if you go straight into QuickBooks, maybe you get a bigger percentage discount, but it won't be for 12 months. That's a special affiliate link that I get as a QuickBooks reseller. And I guarantee you it's most likely going to be the best deal that you will ever see. And if it's not true, or if you have an issue with the discount at some point, just email me about that. Anyway, let's go straight to creating the account. So I'm going to first select the version of QuickBooks that best fits my business. Now, I want to keep this video short, so I'm not going to go in depth into the differences between the Simple Start $30 a month version, Essentials $60 a month, plus $90 a month, and Advanced $200 a month. I'm actually going to create a separate video that I'll put in the description as well, where I'll probably go really, really deep into like what each one of these are and what each of these features mean, because it'll probably take me a good 20 minutes to go through all the features. But long story short, a brand new startup that only wants to track income like invoicing and doesn't want to track accounts payable, like money you owe to vendors, and you don't have multiple users, and you just want to do invoicing and banking and very limited reports. So you would probably go with something like Simple Start. However, most businesses want a little bit more, and they're looking mostly in this Essentials and Plus area in the middle of the subscriptions. And then the bigger businesses, the more established businesses, the ones that quite frankly can afford $200 a month, even with the initial discount, those are going to be looking at Advanced. So most companies are going to be looking at Essentials and Plus. My favorite version, the one that I put most of my new clients in, is Plus. So we're going to start with that as the example for this video. So I'm going to click on Try It Free. And then the next thing is going to ask you, hey, can you give me a user ID, your cell phone number, and a password? Now, one really key important thing is, if I put a user ID that's already an email that's in the QuickBooks database, it's going to tell you error. You already have this user ID. It's already taken. And then most people get really, really stuck at this point and go, oh my God, I don't have a QuickBooks account, but I have an Intuit ID, and they get stuck here. If you want to continue using that email address or that user ID that you created with QuickBooks at some point, or with Intuit at some point in your life, don't sweat it. You can just click on Recover Your Account, and you can reset the user ID and password, and then you can come back into this screen, come back into the link, the same process after you know your actual user ID and password, and then click on Sign In, but from this link process, and then you can log in and then create the account under an existing login, right? Because the login into QuickBooks and the actual account, like the company file, are two separate things, okay? So you just don't want to confuse those two. So let's say this is not the case where you actually put an email in here and it doesn't give you any sort of error. It just lets you go through with the process. Then you don't have to go through the whole reset process. You're actually going to create the login account right here and then. So I'm going to put my cell phone number. And you do need to put a cell phone number because it's going to send you a text, a security text, to make sure that you actually are based in the country that you're setting up the account in. And that's going to be a requirement to log in. Then you click on sign in with email, and then you wait for the next step, which is to verify the code that you got via your cell phone. Once you enter your code, you click on continue, and it goes to the next step, where right now it's actually creating a new company file for you. Again, while this loads, the login into QuickBooks, into the Intuit world, into the QuickBooks world, and the actual company file, the actual database, there could be two different things because some people have one login into QuickBooks and they manage multiple businesses. So you can have one login that can log into multiple businesses. Most people just have one business, so the one login just means the one company file they're going to be logged into. Next thing is you're going to click on next, and you're going to follow the prompt. So I'm going to call this Hector's Plus Company, and then I'm going to click on next, and then I'm going to answer a series of questions. And depending on when you watch this, I guarantee you the questions are going to be essentially the same, but they could change the order of the question. So it's telling you, hey, how have you been managing your finances in the past? And then you can give them information like, well, no, I'm just getting started, or I had some other bookkeeping software, or I was using QuickBooks Desktop. And the reason for that is because if you're using any other way that QuickBooks can help you bring the information in, such as QuickBooks Desktop or Sage 50 or spreadsheets, it's going to prompt you for sort of the next steps after you create the company, which are the most natural things for you to do, which is bring in your existing customer list via Excel, or bring in your existing open invoices, or bring in your existing vendor list. So QuickBooks wants to help you have the best possible experience from the get-go. This is the reason for these questions. Now, let's just say that we're just a startup and I'm just going to say nothing. I'm just getting started, and then click on next. And the next question is, hey, how many years have you been in business? They sort of connect this with, whether or not you're starting from scratch, or whether you're potentially bringing some value and balances from your bank accounts and credit cards or whatever. So this question is only kind of relevant, again, to try to help you set up those beginning balances and understand where you're coming from. Next question is asking me, is this an LLC? Then I can put yes or no or whatever. Answer it is. If I put no, the follow-up question is actually yes or no. Follow-up question is, okay, how is this structure? Is this a C Corp, an S Corp, a partnership? If you don't know, it's okay. You're not going to break anything. You can just click I'm not sure. It's totally okay. But if you have an accountant, a lawyer, a trusted business person that helped you set up the business, you might want to ask what this is, because it's just going to help you set up the structure of QuickBooks Online to sort of match how your taxes are going to be set up at the end of the year. So I'm going to put here S Corp, and then I'm going to hit next. And again, you're going to put whatever makes sense to you. And then you're going to put your industry. Now, the industry helps when doing dashboards, comparing numbers of your business versus other numbers in the industry, like the average numbers of the industry, or when setting up the chart of accounts. All these situations might affect how QuickBooks gets set up when you put whatever the industry is. So I'm just going to put here consulting, and let's say I'm going to choose marketing consulting services. Let's say that's what my company is, and then I'm going to click on next. And if you can't find it, you could just skip it. Okay. Next question is, hey, what is your main role? Are you the owner? Are you a bookkeeper or the accountant? Are you an employee? I'm going to put the owner, most typical thing. Go to next. Now it's asking me, is this company your main source of income? Whether you put yes or no, that's really mostly like a, sort of a follow-up payroll question. So are you going to get paid with payroll? Keep in mind that QuickBooks Online is the core software, and you can add payroll services to that. So payroll is not immediately included with QuickBooks Online. It's something you add more to it. So you just answer the right question. Again, QuickBooks is just trying to help you, guide you through their setup and the services that they offer that could be combined with QuickBooks. So then you can choose here, are you by yourself? Do you have employees? Do you have contractors? You can answer the right question here. So I'm just going to say I'm by myself, no employees, and yes to contractors, and then click next. And again, nothing that you answer here is going to break QuickBooks. So all the settings can be changed later This is just to help you set it up in the right path, customized to your needs. Okay, does your bookkeeper help you? Does a bookkeeper help you with QuickBooks? So if I put yes, this is actually going to prompt you to invite that bookkeeper, assuming that bookkeeper uses QuickBooks Online. So you invite that person, bookkeeper or accountant, and you collaborate. And if you put no, it doesn't prompt you to add that person, but then you can always add that person later, no problem. Next thing is asking you, hey, are there any apps that you're using for your business? And it puts like 4 or 5 apps in the screen. In this case, there's 7. And if you use PayPal or use Bill.com or use Amazon Business or use Square or whatever, if you hit yes to all these things, then it's going to eventually ask you to enter the user ID and password for each one, because it wants to integrate it. It wants to sort of save you a step, since some of the transactions are already sort of booked in there. So the most logical thing is, hey, let me help you connect the transactions from that other app so you can save time doing accounting. You know, at the end of the day, I think that the big promise of having your accounting on the web, having your accounting on the internet, on the cloud, is connecting to these other systems and saving the potential time of entering the information twice. You know, like going to PayPal, process a payment, and then going to QuickBooks and process the payment again in QuickBooks. That seems like double work. So if you have PayPal, you want to connect them so that information flows through. Also, if it's not on the list here, you can search on the drop-down menu, and they keep adding more apps to it. It's pretty amazing the amount of apps you can connect into QuickBooks. Go through and search. Think of every possible app that you're using. And when they mean app, just think about anything that interacts with your accounting. So anything that contains customer information, vendor information, employee information, bank information, transaction information, money information, e-commerce, right? So if you have like, let's say Shopify, you'll type Shopify here, and that's in here as well, and it adds it. So it's just kind of an example of all the potential apps you can add and sort of create the sync with it. Now I'm going to skip this for now, just because that could make the video much longer and much more complex, but we're going to stop there. Now, this is the big question, which is you should connect your accounts to QuickBooks. And the answer to this is yes, you should absolutely connect your accounts to QuickBooks. I think what QuickBooks Online does best, probably better than any other accounting software out there, is that synchronization with your banks. And most banks connect to QuickBooks. You download the transactions, you categorize them. This is something you absolutely, yes, you want to do. Now, I feel that doing it right here, it's a kind of awkward, just because you're in the middle of the setup and you get a little bit distracted just finding user IDs and passwords and stuff like that. So I kind of recommend to skip it at this point and just kind of do it a little bit later. Just keep, fun fact, the reason why QuickBooks puts it in here, it's because of attrition. I think what I can tell from observation is whenever a user sets up a free trial of QuickBooks Online and connects their bank, they're most likely to stay with QuickBooks Online and not just play with the free trial. Because once you connect the banks, it's a real business. They're sort of committed. They see the transactions. You start seeing the value of QuickBooks when the banks are connected. But again, I'm going to skip it from this page. I'm going to show you how to set that up a little bit later, just because I just think in this particular page is there's an awkward situation to create, to connect the bank accounts. So I'm going to go to skip from now. And then it's going to ask you, hey, how do you track receipts? And then I save paper receipts, or I have digital receipts. You can answer whatever it is and click on next. The reason for this question is because you can actually add a phone app, a QuickBooks phone app to your phone, and you can actually scan receipts on the phone app, and they sync with your QuickBooks, and it keeps an archive of that receipt. So that's really cool for people that like to scan the receipts. Just take pictures on your phone, all included within the QuickBooks Online subscription. So then I'm going to click on next, and then it's going to sort of guide you through, hey, since you're doing that, make sure you download the phone on, the app on your iPhone or your Android, whatever it is. So it just gives you kind of the links here. You can take a picture with your camera on this QR code, and it'll take you straight to the app on your phone. So that's definitely something you want to do. Don't stop right now to set that up on your phone. I would probably do that right at the end of your setup. That's my suggestion. But that's what this is doing at this point. Then I'm going to click on next. And then it says, hey, what would you like to do with QuickBooks? Now, again, whatever you put here, it doesn't matter. You can't get the wrong answer. This just kind of guides you to, like, QuickBooks is going to try to tell you, okay, so the next thing you should do is this, and the next thing you should do is that, based on these answers. So if I say I send invoices and I pay bills and I track time, QuickBooks is going to try to guide you through the process of learning how to do those things. Again, so that way the experience of QuickBooks feels more customized to your business. So then I'm going to click on next. And then the next question says, hey, let's set up invoices and payment options. So really important question here. When I click on next, essentially what QuickBooks is doing at this point is they're selling you their services. It's called QuickBooks Payments. And if you go through the process of configuring the payments account, it says set up invoices, but really what it's doing is it's going to do a credit check if you enter all the information. And then with a credit check, as long as you don't have a big issue with your credit, generally most people get approved, and then you'll be able to create invoices with a pay now button, and then people can pay you with a credit card, direct ACH with their bank. They can pay you with Apple Pay. It's really cool. I mean, it's probably one of the big advantages of using QuickBooks Online or a cloud-based accounting system is getting people to pay you electronically. Now, you could do the setup at this point here in this page. Again, another situation where I kind of recommend to just skip it and do that later because it interrupts the flow of the setup. And also, if you set up the account with the link I gave you, I'm going to send you get automatically get an welcome email from me with a couple of videos. If you reply to that email saying, hey, I want to set up a payments account, I can connect you with my rep directly, and they give you very, very small discount. I mean, it's point something % off. But if you do a lot of volume, remember when people pay you with a credit card, you pay a percentage. You pay anywhere between 2.7 and 3.5%, and there are some preferential rates. So if you have the ability to do that, might as well set that up. It'll take you an extra day versus doing it directly with QuickBooks. No issues with doing it directly with QuickBooks. Again, I sell QuickBooks for a living. Some of the add-ons that QuickBooks has, if you buy them through a reseller like mine, like myself, you get a little bit of that additional discount. Anyway, I'm going to skip from now, and then I'll show you how to go back and set those things up afterwards. So I'm going to click on next, and then it goes to the next screen, which says, hey, we're on the way. We're setting things up, and at this point, you're just waiting for that Let's Go button to turn on. Click on the Let's Go button, and then it should take you straight into the QuickBooks Online home screen. Now, we're in the QuickBooks Online home screen. Again, whatever you answered in the setup process, there's no right or wrong answer. You could always go back and change any of these settings later on. So I'm just going to X out of it, and then I have something in my page. I have a couple things. First, I have this sort of prompt saying, you should connect your banks and credit cards, because we haven't connected them yet. This other one says, hey, you should set up your invoices and your electronic payments, because you told us that you wanted to invoice. And then right here, the next setup says, you should be setting up the account to get paid online, and you should be organizing your expenses. So this setup checklist is just sort of trying to guide you to that process. I'm experienced. I know how to use QuickBooks, and I'm kind of showing you how to do that. So I can just close this checklist. I don't even need that checklist anymore, and I can get rid of it. Or I can always go back and open the checklist again. Again, QuickBooks is trying to self-guide you through the setup process to have best possible experience from setting up a new account. Okay, you actually don't need to do anything in this home screen. I mean, you could go through it. You can look at all the different things. You don't need to do anything on the home screen. Once you're sort of an advanced user, you'll probably be skipping this screen all day long. Okay, now what does QuickBooks look like? How do you navigate it? Let's talk about that. Left-hand side is called the navigation bar. Navigation bar is going to have menus and sub-menus. So here under business overview, I'll click on that. And then you'll notice that a whole bunch of sub-menus open up under it. So whichever one I want to go to, if I want to go to reports, then it goes into the reports page, which is in this white area that's over here. I could always go back to the home page by clicking on the QuickBooks logo on the top. That takes you back to the home page, or clicking on anything that says business overview, getting things done. That also sort of takes you back into that home page. Sometimes some of these things are difficult to find, that you're gonna have to go through the process of clicking on each of these and sort of exploring what's on each one. Most brand new QuickBooks users, that's what they do. They'll click on each button and kind of see what that is. Keep in mind that QuickBooks has essentially 5 things that they want to sell you on top of the QuickBooks software. So the QuickBooks accounting software, you can connect to the banks, it can reconcile your bank accounts, you can invoice, you can track expenses, you can prepare financial statements, profit and loss, balance sheet, all that stuff is included with the core QuickBooks software. But into it, the maker of QuickBooks has multiple other interests, I guess, and things that they want to help small businesses do. And one of it's going to be payroll. So if you want to add employees, where you want to give them a paycheck, where they withhold taxes, and into it, QuickBooks pays the governments and sends the forms, then you're going to have to add payroll. You add payroll typically by just clicking on payroll, and there will be a button somewhere in your screen where you can click on enable payroll, and you're going to pay extra for that. Payroll is an additional charge. Like this, for example, says payroll premium, $37.5 a month for 3 months, and then it jumps up to $75 a month, that type of stuff. So if you want to add payroll, that's going to be an additional charge. If you go anywhere where it says like customers or marketing or something like that, there's an additional, a different software called MailChimp, which is part of the ecosystem of QuickBooks. And they have like a super basic free version you can set up. And that's really for sending newsletters, batch emails to your customers. You can set that up through QuickBooks if you want to. Start with something small, you can go big. I personally use MailChimp. I used it before QuickBooks Intuit acquired it. I love it. This is how I email all of my customers, all of my leads. It's a great piece of software. You don't have to use it. It's not fundamental to the use of QuickBooks, but it's there. And again, you can start with something free and then move up as you need it. You will also see in like the banking side, you're going to see a couple things a couple additional services. One is what they call QuickBooks Checking, which is basically a bank account that in this case is free. They're not really selling you anything, but it's QuickBooks is also a bank. So you have the ability to open like a digital electronic bank account with them, and then you get paid electronically, and you can transfer it to your brick and mortar bank from it. But essentially, the bank account, it's like a virtual bank, basically. So you're going to see options you're going to see that quite a bit, right? QuickBooks telling you, hey, you should do a QuickBooks checking account. That's what it is. It's a virtual bank account that QuickBooks offers, because QuickBooks is also a bank. Then you also might see something called QuickBooks Capital, which is QuickBooks selling you a loan. Okay, so you get a loan. And sometimes they're short term, sometimes they're long term. It's all sort of interconnected to their system, since QuickBooks is a bank too, and they have all these small businesses using the software. They see the opportunity for lending money to small businesses. The other thing that you're going to see is, as I mentioned, payments. This is when you invoice someone, and you want to see the Visa Pay Now sort of button in there. So I'll show you what that is. So I'm gonna go create an invoice. So I'm gonna go to get paid. I'm gonna click on create invoice, and I'm gonna create an invoice for the very first time. So when you create an invoice, it's gonna, every single time you go to a new screen, you're gonna have pop-ups with tours and videos where you can watch, and it walks you through stuff. I mean, that's all fine and dandy. I strongly recommend that. But at some point, if you want the invoice to be sent to your customer, and it have a Pay Now, Visa, MasterCard, Apple Pay, whatever logo, you're gonna have to apply to what's called a payments account. Now I'm gonna go through the process of creating an invoice with you, just so you kind of see what it is, and we might get a pop-up saying, "Hey, this is a pop-up requesting for you to create the payments account," or we might not. Let's see what happens, and if not, then I'll take you back to the payments settings, and we can see we can add that up. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add a customer. So I'm just going to click on Add New. I get this little drawer that comes to the right and says, "Hey, what's the customer's name?" Brand new account. I don't have any customers in there, so I'm going to put Maria Smith, and I could go in there and put an address, phone number, email, notes. I mean, there's all sorts of things I can add just for the sake of speed. I'm going to click Save, and then that creates the customer. I can now invoice Maria Smith. So next thing I want to do is change the date of the invoice, or whatever, date of the invoice. The due date can change automatically based on the term. So if it's 15 days or 60 days or something custom I create, due date gets pushed automatically. Invoice number starts in 1001, like all accounting systems. You can overwrite that, and QuickBooks will keep track of the next number and automatically prompt the next number. Then we're going to select the product and service that we're going to send Maria Smith. So let's say we only have hours and services in there. You can create an entire database or catalog of products and services. That would be a subject for a whole different video, by the way. But by default, you're going to have hours and services set up. So I'm just going to pick services, and then let's say the unit of measure is an hour, and then I'm charging for 3 hours, and I charge, let's say, $100 an hour. And then QuickBooks will calculate 3 times 100 equals 300. And then under description, we can put marketing consulting for new website. Okay, whatever type of services I can offer, and I can have as many lines as I want. Okay, I can just keep adding multiple lines, and you can break it down in so many different itemized categories. If you actually sell products and you want to charge sales tax, there's a little setup button for you to go through the process of sales tax. Long story short, sales tax is included with the core software, so at least that is not an additional service. But if you want QuickBooks to calculate sales tax and set up the amounts for you to fill out for your sales tax forms, QuickBooks can do that. Down here where it says activate online card or bank transfer payments, that has not been activated yet. So if I actually send this customer an invoice, if I send it right now, if I go to review and send, and if I didn't put an email address, it's gonna, of course, force me to put an email address in here. So let's say that's maria@gmail.com or whatever the email is. That's what the email will look like. It would be a little note that says your invoice is ready, $300, and then the customer will not have a pay now button. They're just gonna see view details. So if you set up the actual payments account or the merchant account and that gets approved, next time you send an invoice, the customer will see pay now, Visa, MasterCard, Apple Pay, and then they'll be able to pay you electronically. Trust me, that beats getting a check almost any time of the day. So if I just click on send invoice, the invoice will be sent to Maria. They can only really pay via check. I probably should have put the address of the business so that Maria knows where to mail the check, so we can talk about that. I do want to mention something. If you are in the middle of creating the invoice, I just want to kind of show you that. So let me go back and create the invoice again. And we're in the middle of creating something, and then you want to set that up in the future, you can just click that setup button, and then it will take you to the page where you're actually going to apply for that payments account. All right, so that was the workflow from the invoice, but I'm going to X out of that for a second and just I want to show you something. Let me save and exit, and I'm going to X out. You can also go through the settings and set that up. So you can click on the gear menu. We can click on account and settings, and then we can click on payments on the left hand side, and then we can go to learn more about QuickBooks payments, and that's going to take me, it should take me to the same screen. There you go, same screen where you can apply for that payments account. So again, the purpose of this video is to walk you through setup. Like, we're not really focused on like how to do things. That would be an entirely different video. Check out the description below for any videos related to tutorials on how to do invoices and bills and reconciling the bank accounts. All those things are going to be covered in different videos. I'm focused on setup, correct setup, that sort of thing. Okay, so we've covered the payroll add-on. We covered the invoicing and payments add-on if you wanted to add that. We covered all the other things like QuickBooks Checking, QuickBooks Capital. We covered the entire setup process of the new account. Let's go through the chart of accounts and connecting your banks into QuickBooks. So to go to the chart of accounts, we're going to click on the gear menu, and then we're going to click on chart of accounts. So gear menu, chart of accounts, takes you to this place called the chart of accounts. If you are not so good in accounting, it is your first time looking at any accounting system, this is going to be an intimidating page, that's for sure. It's going to be something that you may have never seen before, something that's confusing, it's asking for accounting technical stuff. Don't worry, you will learn this stuff over time. I have a different video where I just talk about the chart of accounts in depth, so definitely check that out. That's going to be a link in the description. But in this page, for now, because we're doing setup, all you want to do is set up any account that you're using, bank or credit card or loan. And if it has a beginning balance, you want to enter those beginning balances. So for example, let's go to new, and I'm going to create a new bank account. And let's say I have an account in Chase. So I'm going to go to detail type and put checking. And then here under name, I'm going to put Chase checking 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. And I usually put the last 4 digits of the account, makes it easy to identify. Then if if there's a beginning balance that I'm bringing over, I'm going to put, yeah, there's a beginning balance at the beginning of the year, or there's a beginning balance at the beginning of the month. Depends on when I'm going to start doing things in QuickBooks. So if I'm going to start doing everything July 1st, then I want to bring in the balances June 30th. If I'm going to start doing all the transactions starting January 1st, then I want to bring previous year 12/31. So you can want to strongly think about what will be the beginning, the first day in which you're going to be entering transactions into QuickBooks. That way you know that the balances you're bringing in is for like the day right before that, right? So let's say I'm going to start July 1st, putting stuff in QuickBooks. Then I'm going to bring in my balance on June 30th. Let's say that was 10,589. And then I click on Save and Close, and done. The account gets created. Again, we have a whole separate video. We're going to discuss chart of accounts in depth. There's so much to talk about in this page. I mean, it'll blow your mind how in-depth this page is when it comes to the setup of your entire accounting system. But you create all the bank accounts in here. Okay, and then once you create the bank accounts in here, this is the way I recommend it. You can actually individually connect the accounts by clicking on the drop-down menu and clicking on Connect Banks. So when you go to Connect Banks, then that's where you do your whole bank connection process. Now I'm going to X out of that for a second. I could also go into like bookkeeping bookkeeping area on the left-hand side, or in some cases it could be called just transactions, or it could be called bank transactions, or either bookkeeping, bank transactions, or transactions. And then there will be a button here to connect your account, and it'll take you to the same place. So the way you connect the account is you click on the type of bank account that you have. Let's say you have an account in Chase. Then you're going to click on Continue, and it's going to give you a pop-up that's going to ask you, hey, what's your user ID and password for Chase? After you put in user ID and password, it's going to ask you a couple questions. And then once you click on Next, it's going to download the transactions for you. So let me do that. And now it's going to connect to the bank. It's going to start bringing in the information about all the different bank accounts. Then you're going to pick which specific account you want to connect. You put a checkbox next to the account that you want to connect. Then on the bottom, you're going to click on the date in which you want to start bringing transactions in there. So for example, if I told it that I wanted to start July 1st, then I pick July 1st. If I wanted the beginning of the year, I pick the beginning of the year. If I want some custom date, I click on custom, and I pick the specific date from the point I want to start downloading transactions. Again, you don't want to be downloading transactions prior to the period that you're already loading beginning balance information, because that's just going to get really confusing and messy. So then we're going to click on Next, and Next. And now it's going to start the process of connecting the banks, downloading those transactions. And then once it's done connecting, you're going to see a whole bunch of transactions loaded into QuickBooks, and it's going to ask you what to do with them. Now, we're not going to cover this in this video because this part of accounting, which is called bank feeds, let me just go back and show you that screen. So this part where you see all these transactions listed here that were downloaded, like these were a bunch of transactions that were downloaded from the bank. In this case, it was only 5 or 6 transactions. Dealing with these transactions, categorizing these, it's another skill set that you're going to learn. You have to understand your chart of accounts. You have to understand how to match these things to invoices and bills that you're creating and that sort of thing. So that's a whole nother world. But that gives you an idea more or less on how to get started with that. And I do have detailed videos on that. I'll put that on the description. Okay. So lastly, I just want to mention the most important thing is where everything is. Okay. So we mentioned that we have this left navigation bar with submenus. You also have the new button. The new button is going to be where all the transactions are going to be found, where you can create them. So if you want to create an invoice or an expense or a check or a bill or a purchase order, etc., you would do that all through this screen. Now you will notice that some of the links have like these little arrows on them. Like for example, payroll and add employee has a little arrow on it. That's because these features are not included in this version of QuickBooks, because I have not added payroll. I have not upgraded or added the additional payroll subscription. So you're going to have those little arrows just letting you know that there's an upgrade or an additional fee you have to pay to get access to that. Okay, so that's what the new button is. And we'll go back and show you one quick thing about that is actually pretty interesting. So we'll go back and open up the screen again. But this is where all the new transactions are going to be. And then we're going to have the gear menu on the right-hand side, where it's going to be anything related to settings. So we talked about chart of accounts already. We're going to have all of our lists, right? Tags, custom fields, things like that. We're going to have the reconcile button. You're going to be doing a lot of that because accounting is all about reconciling. And we're going to have account and settings. Now I'm going to go into account and settings. And we were there recently. But this would be the place where you, for example, enter your business address. You enter your phone number, your website. You can change, the type of business that you are from IRS perspective and how you file taxes. You can add your company logo. You can load that from your computer. You can change the company name. You can add the EIN number, the tax ID number. So this is all like sort of the basic settings. When you go on billing and subscription, this is where you can see what version of QuickBooks you have. And you can also see the add-ons. So I have QuickBooks Online Payroll. It's not logged in. It's not added. Otherwise, it would be a green little highlight there. I haven't added QuickBooks Time. Didn't talk about that. That's for time tracking via your phone. You can have your employees clock in and clock out via your phone. That's an additional service. There's QuickBooks Online Payments, which we talked about. And those are really the principal ones. This QuickBooks Live Full Service Bookkeeping, that's QuickBooks offering accounting services to their QuickBooks clients. I don't want to get into that. Not a huge fan of my software company selling accounting services to small business owners, but that's a different conversation, more complex than you will ever know. But that is an option. Once you sign in and you subscribe, they'll offer you a service which will include humans, actual people doing work with you alongside of you. And you can also order checks and bank deposit slips and stuff like that, but that's really not, it's kind of inconsequential. Not many people do it. Now we have the company ID. This number is going to be crucial for support. So if you call into it and they're going to ask you, what's your company ID? That's where it is. That's where you have it. If you upgrade it or downgrade it and you have an issue maybe with a discount not applying correctly or whatever, and you call support, you're going to need that company ID. So that's a really important piece. And as you go through, there's all these other tabs that you want to explore. I recommend you explore them so you can kind of see where the settings are, see what things you can turn on or off. You'll get a lot of insight about what QuickBooks can do by just going through these settings. I mean, I kind of wish that there was a little video next to each one. That would be kind of neat, right? Where you can click on the video and it kind of tells you what it is. That's something that they don't have that. If I was the designer of the settings menu, I would probably put a little video explaining what each consequence of these settings are. But if you click on any of these, there is a little question mark, and it kind of explains it to you. But I think for newbies, little video would be nice. But you do see every once in a while you go into a screen that has a little video that gets popped up. I want to add one more thing here. I'm going to go to billing and subscription. I'm going to go to downgrade your plan. And I'm going to downgrade this to Simple Start. And there's a very specific reason why I want to do that. Simple Start, again, I mentioned at the very beginning, is the most basic version of QuickBooks. It doesn't have a lot of features, but a lot of startups are going to be using Simple Start. I get it, no problem. So I'm going to downgrade to Simple Start for a second. And I'm going to go back into QuickBooks Online and show you one sort of key thing that you're going to see. And this is going to be for the people that select Simple Start or Essentials. Is when you go into this new button, now you see these little arrows next to a lot of the transaction types. So for example, when I was in Plus before, purchase orders didn't have this arrow, and delayed credit didn't have this arrow, and delayed charge didn't have this arrow. That means that because you're in a lower version of QuickBooks Online, these features are not available, and they're going to require an upgrade of the monthly service. So that's an important little piece I wanted to add. When you click on the gear menu, there's no arrows here, just because it's interesting. On the gear menu, they just don't add anything in here that you don't have access to. So if you don't have access to it, they won't add it here. It won't be there with the little arrows. Whereas in the new button, everything is in there, including the new arrows, just to kind of remind you that QuickBooks can do that. You just don't have the right version, potentially don't have the right version for that. There's also the help menu. You can do things in the help. You can do things in the help menu that essentially sort of search the web. There's a little chat bot here I don't know how effective it is, but if you do the actual search and you ask the same question, how do I receive a payment? And I think I misspelled that. Okay, put that correctly. And you press enter. What it'll do is it'll sort of like search the web and it'll find an actual article. So if I click on one of these articles, there will be an article that walks you through the question. Maybe it's what you asked, maybe it's something similar. And then sometimes there'll be like little videos in there that walk you through it. So that's actually not bad. As a matter of fact, it's my opinion that QuickBooks as a whole is probably the accounting package out there that has the most amount of help, videos, and active users. So for most people getting started, it's kind of a feel good thing. So it's there. Of course, obviously I recommend you look at my YouTube channel as well for help. And sometimes you can find things in the search menu. So if you click on search, and let's say you're looking for a profit and loss report and you don't know how to get there, you just type profit, and it'll try to search through the QuickBooks file, through the settings, through the different features, and try to get you, where you want to go. So in this case, there it is, profit and loss. So if I click on that, it's going to now create the profit and loss report for me. I haven't created any transactions, with the exception, I believe, of like an invoice or sort. There it is, of $300. So you got to start putting transactions in there for this to be a thing, right? Where the reports actually have information. Now I'm going to quickly throw a little bit of an advanced concept here. And if you're kind of overwhelmed with the content that we've covered so far, feel free to skip this and go straight to the outro if you want to. But I want to give you a little bit of taste of sort of my world. I've been using QuickBooks for a very, very, very long time. I am a very advanced user. If you subscribe to my YouTube channel, you see that I have all sorts of videos with super basic getting started like this and some really advanced stuff. But I'm passionate about using QuickBooks in the most effective, efficient way possible. So I want to show you a couple of little hints and tips and tricks on how you can get just much better using QuickBooks by using keyboard shortcuts or shortcuts in general. So if you hit Control plus on your keyboard or Control minus on your keyboard, it's going to zoom in and zoom out. There are so many screens in which the font size, it's way too big or way too small, and you're going to find yourself zooming in and out and using the standard Chrome zoom mechanism or the standard browser zoom mechanism takes way too long. So remember that, Control plus, Control minus, or if you're in a Mac, Command plus, Command minus. So that's sort of like the most basic keyboard shortcut. The other keyboard shortcut you need to know is Control Alt question mark or Control Option question mark if you're on a Mac. And when you do that, the additional information window pops up. It gives you the company ID, which we talked about earlier, that you might need for support or whatever. And then it gives you a little quick cheat sheet that tells you which combination of keys, if you hit Control Alt on the PC and this key, or Control Option and one of these keys, it can take you straight there. So for example, earlier I said that to go to an invoice, you have to click on the new button and then you have to click on invoice. That's way too many clicks, right? So if you hit Control Alt or Control Option in a Mac, it takes you straight into the invoice. So that's kind of like one of those key important navigation keyboard shortcuts you need to know. Now in some screens, for some reason, and I really can't get into it, when you press escape, it will close the thing that you had just opened, the transaction you have just opened. In some cases, it doesn't really work, but that escape key is also really useful, and hopefully they'll make QuickBooks better and better where the escape key just actually works in every screen. But in most screens where something got overlaid on top, like an invoice, for example, a check, if I do Control Alt W or Control Option W, you'll go to the right check screen or to the screen where you can open and create the check. And if I press escape, it should exit out of that. In this case, it didn't work. So then I'll have to literally click on the X button. So hopefully, they'll fix, where the escape key doesn't work. Different topic of conversation altogether. But I'm going to give you a really cool thing. I'm going to show you a really cool thing, which is an add-on. You can add to QuickBooks an app that I designed, right? That's right. I, Hector Garcia, designed this app. I didn't build it. I'm not a programmer, but I have a programming team. And this app is called RightTool. Now you're going to see it on the right-hand side of the screen. And you see the RightTool logo. This has nothing to do with QuickBooks. You have to install it on top of it. And you install it through what's called the Chrome Web Extension Store. I'll put a link to that to the description, and it basically kind of looks like this. And once you're in the Chrome Web Store for RightTool, there'll be a green button on the top right that will say install into browser, or add to browser, or add to Chrome, or add to Microsoft Edge. It only works in Google Chrome as a browser or Microsoft Edge as a web browser. So if you're using an iPad to use QuickBooks, which uses Safari, this won't work. If you're using Safari on your Mac, it won't work. And it kind of works in Firefox, but Google Chrome and Firefox and Microsoft Edge are the preferred browsers for QuickBooks Online anyway. And it's also the only browser in which you can add this thing called RightTool for QuickBooks Online, something that as I mentioned earlier, an app that I designed. But why would you do that? Well, first of all, we have a free version, and that free version will have little ads in the bottom right, but you'll have most of the navigation functionality. You can do things like add to your favorite list of places you want to get to QuickBooks quickly into this home page. Like, for example, we pre-build like the top 10. I'm just going to X out, get rid of these to here, but we pre-build the top 10 things that I think most QuickBooks users navigate to, that generally will take the average QuickBooks user multiple clicks to get into. Okay, so for example, if I want to get into bank feed, normally with QuickBooks Online using the left navigation bar, you have to click on business overview, and then you have to, or actually you have to click on bookkeeping, and then you have to click on transactions, and then click on bank transactions, and that gets you into the banking screen. Now, this left navigation bar that you see here, this is the one that was new, and now it's the old one. But this left navigation bar could look a little different. I'm actually gonna switch modes here, and your navigation bar in your screen might look maybe more like this one that you're seeing right here on the screen. But just long story short, if you wanted to get into banking, again, you have to go over to banking or transactions and then click on banking. It takes multiple clicks. Whereas I'm just going to go to the home screen really quick. If you're using RightTool, the additional app that I'm referring to, you can quickly go to bank feed by just clicking on bank feed. And that one adds additional keyboard shortcuts. So Control Alt 1 or Control Option 1 or Control Command 1 on the Mac will take me straight to that. Or the same thing if I do the 2 or the 3 or the 4. So those numbers are there to tell you, hey, if you use Control Alt and that number, or Control a command in the Mac and that number, those combination of things are actually going to get you to that specific shortcut. So things that maybe QuickBooks doesn't even have built a shortcut for, you can build your own. So let's say you're sitting someplace in QuickBooks that there's no direct link to. So for example, I'm going to go into, let's say, the audit log. Okay, so that takes multiple clicks to get there. Let's say you love this screen. This is like a screen that you go to many times. If you want to bookmark it, what you can do is you can click on Add Custom on the right-hand side on RightTool. You add custom, and it adds it up here, and then you give it a name. So we're going to call this audit log, and you can give it any custom name. This right here is the URL per se, and then you click on Save, and you see that here it says audit log. There it is. So any point in time that you happen to be, let's say, on the home screen, I don't have to click 2 or 3 times to get the audit log. I just go straight into my shortcut here. And if it happens to be in the top 10, I can click and drag this and replace it with any of these. So I can put my audit log in 9, for example. I would hit the combination Control Alt 9 or Control Command 9, and we'll do it right now. Control Command 9. It takes me straight into the audit log. So we basically hacked QuickBooks to do a lot more than what it was meant to do via keyboard shortcuts. And this favorite screen here is just the tip of the iceberg. I mean, there's so many things here, and I'll put in the description links where I go in depth with RightTool, but I'll just give you a general idea. I'm going to click on our website where we have a list of keyboard shortcuts. This group of keyboard shortcuts, this is the same group of keyboard shortcuts that you get when you hit Control Option question mark or Control Alt question mark. This is the same group of keyboard shortcuts, just to give you a reference point. And then we've added, once you add RightTool, we've added a list of, essentially, you can almost essentially get to every single place in QuickBooks with a combo of a keyboard shortcut. Okay, and or you can trigger certain areas inside QuickBooks, inside reports, inside customization, going into the additional keyboard shortcut. So I'll just give you an example. Deposit. So that's a U. So I'm going to go back into QuickBooks here. Notice that there's no shortcut to go to deposits. So there was just no way to go to deposits in QuickBooks. So like the normal way you would go into deposits, you would go to new, and then you click on bank deposit. On top of the fact that you have to remember where they are in the menu sequence. So with RightTool, you hit Control Command U on the Mac or Control Alt U on the PC, and it'll take you straight into deposits. That's kind of the point. And again, this is just like the super simple stuff. You can actually collapse the left navigation bar, and with RightTool, you can instruct it to stay collapsed, so you can completely ignore QuickBooks' left navigation bar. And like I said, it's kind of like a hack, right? So you ignore the left navigation bar, and then there is a new button on the right-hand side, and you can also hit Control Command Plus, and it will open up that new screen bar on the right-hand side, or you can do Control Command minus, and it will open up the settings screen on the right-hand side. So you can essentially completely kill the left navigation bar and use the right navigation bar, or once you learn all the keyboard shortcuts, you can collapse RightTool, and then you can use your keyboard shortcut essentially to almost get to anywhere in QuickBooks. So Control Command Plus, that opens up the navigation bar, and what's really cool is immediately after that, I'm using my keyboard, I'm not using my mouse. I can completely go straight to where I want to go. Okay, so Control Command minus or Control Alt minus, and then again using the keyboard shortcut, go straight to where I want to go. You can only achieve this once you install RightTool, and again, we'll put a link in the description for you to be able to do that. And then there's a free version, and it has all the shortcuts that I just mentioned plus more. And then later on, if you're like a super power user, you can add the pro version that adds a whole bunch of like crazy additional shortcuts that we've created to really optimize your workflow. But there's tons of amazing things, like you can click on this little microphone. You click on the microphone, enable the microphone, and then you can talk to QuickBooks and tell it what you're looking for. So for example, I'm just going to delete that for a second. I'm going to click on the microphone, and then I'm going to say maybe balance sheet. So I'm going to click on the microphone and say balance sheet. I didn't type it. I noticed it picked up and say too, because I'm sort of doing a video at the same time. So I'm going to do it a little bit different. Let me just X out of that. Balance sheet. Okay. So it understood that I said balance sheet. It typed balance sheet for me, and it searched it in the RightTool database of shortcuts. Okay, which is super cool, because almost everything that you can do in QuickBooks, you can find through the RightTool search. So if I'm looking for a deposit, for example, I'll just type the word deposit, and notice that QuickBooks gave me all the possible things in QuickBooks that contain the word deposit. So this tool called batch enter deposits, and search recent bank deposits, and recurring bank deposits, and payments to deposit, and payments deposit detail, make deposit. QuickBooks does have a search bar, and I'll just show you really quick. If I type the word deposit, some things will show up, but QuickBooks only gives me, go to create a bank deposit and standard deposit detail. And these are two accounts in the chart of accounts that contain the word deposit. It does kind of work, but you will get more stuff here. I'm going to click on the microphone. Deposit. There's a lot more things in QuickBooks that have the word deposit in it. And I think RightTool will also help you just discover things you didn't know QuickBooks could do. So that's actually really neat. And if you don't know what to search, you can literally just click on all shortcuts, and you're going to see the database of the full shortcut list of every single page available in QuickBooks. Now, again, like I said, this is an advanced concept. If you're just getting started, this is like super overwhelming. But after you start using QuickBooks for a couple of months, sometimes a couple of years, I get it, you're going to want to go straight to very specific screens that took 3 or 4 clicks through the regular QuickBooks navigation system to use, and you're going to truly appreciate saying, you know what, I want make deposit, I want that as a shortcut, or I want transfers, I want that as a shortcut, or I want receipts, I want that as a shortcut. And once you click on those little stars and you go back to your favorites, there they are. All those custom shortcuts, you brought them up to your customizable right navigation bar, and you had them right there. And then same thing with reports. You can click on all reports and you can navigate the entire reports database, including these really cool hidden reports that are not available to users by default. Basically custom reports that we built for our users, and you can sort of explore those as well. So like I said, if that was too much, I get it. Ignore it. Imagine RightTool doesn't exist. Hope you can just fast forward straight to the outro. But once you, trust me, once you start using QuickBooks, you add RightTool into your life, and then you're gonna completely fall in love with QuickBooks, and you'll have the choice to use the left navigation bar that QuickBooks gave you, or the right navigation bar. So that's, it's gonna be completely up to you once you add the additional Chrome extension called RightTool. Well, anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you're getting started with QuickBooks Online, I hope that at least you know where everything is, that you don't feel lost. I mean, it's overwhelming. Any new software, it's always going to be overwhelming. So, keep calm. You'll get there. I have educated, trained, helped, consulted, whatever you want to call it, probably over 2,000 people in a one-on-one basis in the last 15 years, either in QuickBooks Desktop or QuickBooks Online. And let me tell you the silver lining. Everybody makes it. Everybody figures it out at some point. Some people it takes them a month. Some people it takes them 2 years, 3 years. At the end of the day, depending on the type of business that you have, you might be very involved putting things into QuickBooks day to day. Or you might just do high-level stuff like look at invoices, look at reports, and you have employees and people you trust doing that piece of the work. That's going to be different for everyone. But most entrepreneurs, most small business owners, I think they draw tons of value from doing the books themselves, so they can be in touch to what's happening with their money, like who is paying them, who's not paying them, what customers pay on time, which ones do not, where's my money in my bank going, what things am I paying, what vendors am I paying, what things I forgot that they were on subscription and I need to cancel them. So the business owner being in touch with their books, looking at their banks, looking at their accounting has really high value at first. But then once your business grows, that's where you get an accountant. That's where you get a professional. That's where you get a QuickBooks Pro advisor, a bookkeeper, a CPA, whatever you call it, to help you. And then you figure it out what that combination looks like. What's that magic combination where you as the business owner do what you need to do to move the business forward, and only touch the parts of QuickBooks that you really need to, and then let other people do that. And that collaboration hopefully is a net win for everybody. You as the business owner get more time back to work on your business and bring clients, and the bookkeeper, accountant, employee, whether it's an internal employee, an internal bookkeeper or an external bookkeeper, whatever it is, that person obviously has a job or has income from the services, and hopefully everybody wins. But one thing to be clear is, if you want to know how to use QuickBooks well, to the point that you understand everything you're doing, understand the consequences of other people touching your QuickBooks, understanding what happens if you reconcile the bank, what happens with duplicate transactions, where you create an invoice and receive a payment but you don't match them. So once you understand all of that and then start looking at the reports and see there's errors and you clean that up, and it gets to the point where your profit and loss and your balance sheet, and I'll do another video on financial reports. That's another really crucial piece of this whole thing. But you look at your reports and you say, oh, I trust them. I know what I'm looking at. I trust the information that's there. That's when you level up as a business owner, and then you start making better decisions based on a client you lost money on, and then you see another client that looks and smells and feels like a client you lost money on. You might not take that client. You might price them differently, or you might do better contracting or better scoping or whatever. So as a business owner, once you start seeing in real time all these things that affect your business because of a decision you made or because of a decision you didn't make, because it could happen either way, then you start becoming a better business owner. And that's where you start truly feeling the value of accounting and bookkeeping. It's very hard when you first set up QuickBooks to just see the value immediately. And it's very easy to give up and say, screw it, I'll go back to just managing things by hand. Okay, so stick with it. If you can find a pro to help you alongside of you, find it. And then definitely subscribe to my channel and see the other videos. I'll put some playlists and some links in the description to hopefully help you with the journey of managing your own books. Thank you, and I'll see you in the next one.